Before I knew the world was ending, I was a king. Now they call me the Shipwright. After nearly a century, the task I was given is almost complete. This is my last chance to save whoever would join us, to salvage whatever knowledge I can, to help us rebuild. But the gods rule here, and they never do things the easy way.
In this episode, I finish off page 8. I work on a couple more illustrations for that intro, but before we get started, I have something to share with you from Phillip Nathaniel Freeman.
All right, it is story time. Story time! I am so excited and honored to be a part of this specific project, and it is because there is a full circle moment here. I've been very fortunate and privileged to have met some amazing people in the voice acting industry and other artists and musicians and composers in the last few weeks. It has been amazing. But this specific project that I've been hired for is really special to me. The reason why is because I'm getting a chance to work with someone, an artist that I have been following, literally following and inspired by since I was 12 years old. The name of this artist is Matt Rhodes. When I used to sketch more often, this is the artist. This artist right here, Matt Rhodes. He's the guy that I have modeled my sketching after for years. I haven't done it in a long time, but I loved drawing so much, and he was a major inspiration for my art. So the fact that I am getting a chance to work with him on a project, blowing my mind right now. And when he said he wanted to work with me, I was so happy. I was so happy. So I'm just 12-year-old me is losing his mind right now. And I truly hope that all the voice actors out there in the world have a chance to experience a full circle moment like this, to get to work with somebody that you have admired since you were a kid. Matt, thank you so much for the opportunity. I am so honored to be a part of this, and I really hope the best for this project and that this moves forward in the way that you're envisioning. And I'm so honored to be a part of it. Thank you, dude. Appreciate you so much.
Is that not crazy? First of all, thank you, Phillip. But really, is that not actually crazy? I did not reach out to him for that reason. I've been searching for voice actors for a while, and he stood out. And if that's not confirmation that I found the right guy, I don't know what is. The intro is by no means the last collaboration I want to do with Phillip. So I'm excited for whatever it is we can do next. Now, onto these illustrations. To accompany the line, "to save whoever might join us," I wanted to create an image that added a bit of irony to that line, to show the hostile world that he finds himself in. The Shipwright is surrounded by characters that are very much not likely to join him. I thought of a relatively flat composition that allowed for a lot of the characters to show up, that acted almost more like a portrait gallery. To start, I fell into the trap of trying to respect perspective too much. So I tried to plot out how far different characters would be at different distances, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized it ran counter to the effect I was trying to achieve. So I dispensed with perspective almost entirely, and instead I just started sketching characters. Each one was on its own layer so that I could move them around and kind of find the right balance. Each figure represents some group or aspect of the antediluvian world. And of course, for thematic reasons, the Shipwright is walking against the flow of the crowd. The first figure is a serpent cultist, one of the most common and widespread factions in this world. Serpent worshippers are found almost everywhere. So of course there's snake-themed jewelry. Her ears are pierced with large snake fangs, and she carries a wavy dagger. On the other side, I had to give a place of prominence to another geometry cultist. This is a group that seeks to unlock the secrets of the universe through geometry and mathematics. I keep coming back to them. They have a special place in my heart. Maybe it's because of my own fascination with the elegance of geometry, so I can kind of sympathize that it would be easy to think that there is some deep universal secret you can find hidden in circles. So they'll keep showing up in images until I can have fun with their story in particular. Next up is another common figure, again found almost everywhere, a witch. This one is still relatively new, maybe only a few years in. She still looks quite human, but I intend to differentiate her with color. I wanted to have one person that seemed more like the baseline, partly just to establish the Shipwright's scale. He's 7.5 feet tall. In this illustration, while I am playing it fast and loose with perspective, we are still looking down on him somewhat. So I wanted to draw a servant looking at him with some amount of awe. A reminder that he's not the kind of guy you see a lot in this world. This full body veil doesn't represent a faction, but it is reflective of the dangers of this world. I've been sketching these a fair amount. It's like a fairly common and somewhat fashionable defense against the creatures of the antediluvian. A wide spiked hat acts as a deterrent. The hanging veil hides the delicious-looking human figure beneath. The decorative eye spots are meant to deter predators. Now, for this guard, I knew I couldn't create an image with this many figures and not include at least somebody wearing glass armor. The forms of it are inspired by a few different antediluvian creatures, with a protective crest on top, some tusks on the bottom. The motif on the shield is an abstracted representation of the Watchers, with its multiple eyes. This character is a bit more mysterious. I haven't talked much about it yet, but consider this a first pass design for a group that follows the No God, the God against gods. His faceless mask, a rejection of his own humanity. The straw man doesn't represent a particular faction. He just represents another defense against the dangers of this world, using dense straw partially as a defense, but similar to the veil, as another way of looking less like food. Finally, we have a heavily robed traveler. He generally just represents the idea of trade and travel. I finished it off with a few characters that are really just meant to fill in some gaps. On to color. What's a geometry cultist without his tattoos? They're part sacred geometry, part ruler. I finished off the base colors for everybody else, and then began the long but fun process of balancing the values and colors for everybody to make sure that the hierarchy of information was preserved. The Shipwright is obviously the focal point, but obviously in an image like this, I still wanted the characters to all read at least somewhat clearly. The main reason I use a lot of these hazy light screens is because I'm trying to make sure that the important silhouettes read as clearly as possible. Silhouette is by far the most important element in an illustration to make sure things read clearly. I wanted to have some light coming down from the top, as though this was set on a dense, covered street and a bit of sunlight was peeking through a gap, and then some of the light is bouncing back off the sandy floor below. Once I had the values roughly where I wanted them, I came back in and added some of the highlights. You can spend forever on reflections. For this project, I want just enough to show some material variation. I wrapped it up with some final color grading, checking occasionally to make sure that all the values were still holding up, and with that, I had the shot I wanted. To salvage whatever knowledge I can to help us rebuild. To accompany those lines, it was the perfect opportunity to draw something I've wanted to for quite some time. The Shipwright and Bastion in the midst of a library heist. The knowledge he seeks will take many forms, but occasionally I'd like to get literal about it. In this case, he has infiltrated a royal library, an archive of knowledge, and he's taken the most important piece he can find. Now it's time to get out. Bastion, the 80-plus-year-old, highly experienced sheepdog, is having a grand old time leading the guards on a chase through the library. He's used to leading creatures that are much less predictable and far larger, so it's the perfect distraction to help the Shipwright escape on the shelves above. To really sell the idea of a densely packed library, I built a 3D model in Blender. I was thinking that I would draw over it, but with this level of complexity, I think that would be an irresponsible use of my time. I patched up a few things, added some details, but this is one of those areas where having my priorities saves me from getting trapped. My main priority is story. As long as the visuals are telling that story, I can consider that a success. Obviously, there's more to learn as I figure Blender out more. My renders will be even more useful, especially for complex scenes like this. But for my purposes now, I thought this worked. I added some smoke, mostly just to enhance the sense of depth. With some final color adjustment, I was ready to call this image done. Now, I've been adding some parallax animation to bring these to life. This one was not planned well for those purposes, but thankfully I could add a little bit of it without it breaking, so I'll probably be more careful next time. Now on to page 8. Our trio made a daring leap, and they've now landed in the river below. Cut through a narrow canyon, the water is perilous, but that helps to reduce the likelihood that they'll run into water creatures, trading one peril for another. Every time I think I'm making things easier on myself, the reality is more complicated. Between the figures and the drapery, underwater, with splash bubbles, it was a lot to figure out. It still makes me laugh sometimes. I do a lot of work to figure out all of the anatomy and drapery and figure out all the details of how this stuff will work, for most of it to be hidden, but I'm not clever enough to be able to draw it all from scratch. The layers help me keep it all sorted out. Without it, I'd get lost quickly, I'd forget stuff. My overall structures would likely be off, so I don't consider it a loss. Kind of like taking the time to frame a house. All that work, and you're never going to see the frame underneath all the drywall and exterior finishing. But without it, you wouldn't have the house. If anything, doing this video series has been kind of nice, because it's a chance for all that work to be at least somewhat useful. Because now I know at least somebody's seen it. And if it helps to demystify the process for somebody a little bit, great. For the Whitewater Canyon scene, I'm still trying to focus on drawing the effect, not the object. I love line, but it can be all too easy to use the same kind of line for most things. So what I've been trying to do is really differentiate the material through how I render. So here I'm trying to make sure that the water and the cliff and the plants all look distinct. I just want the feel of the materials to be very different. For the vegetation on the cliffs, I tried to use black more to my advantage, hiding most things in shadow, with only a few pieces visible to indicate volume. And I really like how it turned out. This really is trying to go back to the techniques from earlier in the last century and learn from people who seem to have had it figured out a long time ago. I reference it often, and I will continue to do so. Hal Foster's Prince Valiant is one of my biggest sources of inspiration for this series. And once again, using value to try to enhance the feeling of depth and distance and scale. Prince Valiant is one of my main references. I'm referencing it not just for the art. The art is stunning, but it was a Sunday comic. Because of that format, it had a pace that I really like. They wanted to cover a lot of story with one page to make something that felt worth reading. I love stories that move. So while I could have done a whole sequence spent in the river, I know where I'd like to go. That meant I felt comfortable pushing ahead to the end of their short river journey. While the white water protected them from river predators, the dry land is a different story. I love how vicious these Guidracos are. Pterosaurs with these massive overlapping fangs, like a Venus flytrap attached to a pterodactyl. These predators are trying to slowly emerge from the shadows to not scare away their prey. Now they've just gotten out of the water, which means a dog's gotta do what a dog's gotta do. This was a lot of fun to draw. When dogs shake water off themselves, their whole line of action twists. So it was a ton of fun figuring out where the water would come shooting off of him. Of course, he has his armor, which reduces the splash somewhat. Bastian has been with the Shipwright for a long time. He knows what to expect. And while he may already be soaking wet himself, it's just pure instinct to protect yourself from a shaking dog. The same principles of light and color apply. I wanted the Guidracos to be emerging from the shadows, and to make sure that the highest point of contrast was around our figures. Sufficiently dried off, Bastian notices the monsters immediately and does what he does best. There's a reason Bastian was selected to accompany the Shipwright. He attacks first and asks questions. Well, he doesn't really ask questions. All predators, by nature, are cautious. They don't like opposition or challenge. Typically, they like an easy meal. The sick, the weak, the cornered. They like the sure thing. Bastian's unrelenting offense is his best defense. He has no concept of scale. When faced with a threat, there's no such thing as too big. And so the last remaining predator does what all predators do. It flees from opposition, hoping to survive, to hunt an easier target another day. I thought this would be an ideal opportunity for another establishing shot. The Shipwright's destination is the road, so I wanted to show that that was now in reach. The river winds into the distance, and we see the road built along the hills. Once again, I wanted to experiment with drawing the effect of the forest, thinking about the shadow of the tree canopy. Thankfully, this approach is faster and more effective. That's a good mix. If it was faster and also looked worse, that would be a big problem. But with the hills and the cliffs and the river, I was able to put something together that felt at least somewhat convincing. For a final step, I added a little bit more atmospheric dispersion, again, just to help with that sense of distance and scale. And with that, page 8 is complete. Thanks for watching.